Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'm Chris Palmer, the MLA for Kings West and chair of this committee. Today we will not hear from presenters. We will be holding an agenda-setting meeting, and we all are aware of that. Please turn off your phones at this time and put them on silent. And in case of an emergency, just a reminder that we would use the Granville Street exit and walk up to the Grand Parade. For the record, I'll now ask all committee members to introduce themselves by stating their name and their constituency, and we'll begin with MLA Barkos.
Thank you, Chair. Danielle Barkos, MLA for Chester St. Margaret's.
Good afternoon, Larry Harrison, MLA for Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley.
Hello, Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
Good afternoon, Olin Young, MLA for Shelburne.
Lisa LaChance, MLA, Halifax, Little Sable Island.
Good afternoon, MLA for Cole Harbour, Tony Ince.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Jessam. I represent the constituency of Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Thank you, everyone. And for the purpose of Hansard, I'd like to recognize the presence of Legislative Counsel Karen Kinley to my right, and our Legislative Committee Clerk Tamer Nusseibeh on my left. Before we move into our agenda setting, we will just address some committee business. We'll do that first today, and then we'll move into our agenda setting to conclude our meeting this afternoon. Just to note that their meeting for March 21st may or may not happen. Obviously, with the House being called back, probably won't happen. So that's just a note to remember. The request for financial barrier reduction to access peer support services has been sent to the Minister of Veterans Affairs Canada, the Honourable Lawrence Macaulay, as was directed by our committee. The request for recognition of the Fort Massey Monument, the time limit concerning the application, and an extension for the respective date have been sent to the Minister of Veterans Affairs Canada, the Honourable Lawrence Macaulay, as per the direction of this committee. And the request for the Department of Service, Nova Scotia, and Internal Services to connect with the Last Post Fund has been sent to Deputy Minister Joanne Monroe. The department has confirmed receipt of that letter as was directed by this committee. So is there any questions about any of those pieces of business? Okay. So seeing none, there was reminded by our Legislative Counsel that from our last meeting, there still is a motion on the table put forward by MLA Jessam. So maybe what we'll do just briefly, quickly, for the record here this afternoon for a new meeting, we will ask MLA Jessam just to repeat his motion, and then we'll go from there. So MLA Jessam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members, for your indulgence. As we see from today's correspondence, last meeting we collaborated and worked together and asked some questions that hopefully we'll get some answers to. I appreciate the spirit that we were able to achieve last committee meeting, and in that same spirit, I hope that we can continue to collaborate. For the record, and I know we've been over it a number of times at this point. But I will read it into the record for another time. So whereas the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs considers matters relating to veterans and the Canadian Armed Forces for the Royal Canadian Legion and the Royal Canadian Legion, excuse me, and whereas matters pertaining to the Canadian Armed Forces predominantly fall under the jurisdiction of the national government, and whereas on June 14th, 2022, the Minister responsible for military relations and the Government of Nova Scotia, the Department of National Defence, the Canadian Armed Forces, and Canadian Armed Forces Morale and Welfare Services met with provincial and territorial delegates in Ottawa to ratify the terms of reference for the Seamless Canada initiative. And whereas the objective of Seamless Canada is to strengthen federal, provincial, and territorial collaboration to improve the relocation experience of CAF members by sharing information and best practices amongst jurisdictions and stakeholders. And whereas Seamless Canada is focused on matters pertaining to military families, including improved healthcare access for CAF families, securing essential worker status for CAF members, a review of education barriers for students relocating between jurisdictions, and leveraged employment and training support services for military spouses through the Military Spousal Employment Initiative and the Military Spousal Employment Network. Therefore, I move that the Nova Scotia Legislature Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs expands its mandate to include matters related to presently serving military families, as was ratified on June 14th, 2022, by the Minister responsible for military relations and the Nova Scotia government.
Thank you, MLA Jessom. So I'll allow for a brief discussion on this, and MLA Barkos.
Although this is absolutely a worthwhile issue, the agreement was just signed in June. We think we should give it some time to see how it functions and coordinates throughout the country before we make this as change to our committee. And that's not a no, it's just a not right now. It's too new for us to start changing mandates.
MLA LaChance?
Hi, thank you. And so I think I just have a couple comments on this. So I actually think it was perfectly legitimate to look at the mandates of legislative committees and make sure that they're functioning well and doing what we need them to do. However, I think for that to be done, I'd be much more comfortable with a little bit of study around, what exists in other provinces and territories, what do they cover, how do they function, so that we actually are building, we're not just kind of making this up as we go along. I guess I would disagree, however, with MLA Barkos around the question of whether it's too soon because of the Seamless Canada initiative. I mean, realistically, we wouldn't be coming back to this question until it's been a year, and I think that's plenty of time to start thinking about how we're actually going to work within that new mandate.
Okay. MLA Jessom?
Yeah, I just for the record, I didn't expect to land this plane right out of the gate, and I do appreciate that that committee members do want some additional time to contemplate. I will say, as a member of this committee, having served on the committee for more than 9 years now, I genuinely believe that it's time for some expansion of scope. As indicated in my motion, the jurisdiction of military affairs certainly and almost completely falls under the mandate of the national government. And over my time on this committee, we've had the opportunity to hear from witnesses and ask questions and learn about their organizations, and often offer our services in our MLA's offices to help spread the word about what their respective organizations are trying to accomplish. But I believe that a move to incorporate military families would give this committee more teeth, more ability to actually serve Nova Scotians directly. And I believe that there has been an indication from our Minister of Military Affairs through signing on to the terms of reference for Seamless Canada to play an active role in how do we best serve our military families. And I will add that while it certainly is new for a number of people, I personally attended two meetings of the Seamless Canada initiative during my time on the government side of the House. So while it continues to grow, it is something that has been active for a number of years at this point. And I think that that's important to state for the record as well. So I want to thank all committee members for their consideration.
Okay, thank you, MLA Jessom. So, seeing no further discussion, we'll put it to a vote. So, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion is defeated. Okay, everybody, so we will now move on to our agenda-setting part of our meeting this afternoon. You can see that our clerk has left us a little overview here of our topics, two-sided page as well. So we will begin with the PC caucus in regards to their agenda setting, and MLA Young, you're first up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the first topic for the PC caucus be peer support community facilities with representatives from the following facilities as witnesses: Rally Point Retreat, Landing Strong, RAS Retreat, and the Atlantic Center for Trauma.
Okay. Ask him to expand on the name of RAS. It's just been requested if you could just expand on the RAS Retreat, replenish around shipmates. Is that what you were asking? I think in regards for our clerk to be able to know who to notify, get a hold of. MLA Young.
Yeah, so replenish around shipmates. Is that what you're asking? An Navy-oriented veterans retreat, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is there any discussion? Yep. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried. We'll move on to the next topic. MLA Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the second topic for the PC caucus be True Patriot Love, Veterans Virtual Hub, Veteran Volunteerism, with True Patriot Love representatives as a witness.
Thank you, MLA Harrison. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried. The third topic for the PC caucus, MLA Taggart.
I move that the third topic for the PC caucus be the war amps with Mr. Tim Vierny and Nova Scotia Region representative as a witness.
Thank you. Motion on the table is any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried. We'll now move on to the Liberal topics. MLA Jessom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, our first topic for consideration in response to today's motion being defeated is an expanded mandate of the committee review. And we haven't requested specific witnesses, but in the spirit of collaboration, I would invite committee members to comment on perhaps individuals that may be able to support us in that endeavor.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there discussion? MLA Taggart.
I have a question. So this is, so in my notes, it speaks directly to Seamless Canada, but in this motion that you just made, it's just basically opening our mandate up to see if we wanted to change it. Is that correct?
MLA Jessom.
Yeah, I think that the motion is intended to be broad, to give us some latitude to discuss what might be appropriate. I think personally that it's important for us to maintain the element of the committee mandate that pertains to Veterans Affairs. Personally, I believe that military families and some of the topics of discussion that the Seamless Canada Initiative is covering would be a positive addition to our committee mandate, not necessarily tied specifically to Seamless, but things like spousal employment, healthcare, family relocation, what have you. If there are other suggestions on how to expand and improve the ability of this committee, I would be open to those suggestions. And I believe that an expanded committee mandate, the language in the motion gives us the flexibility to have that conversation and come up with a collaborative approach to moving forward.
MLA Lachance?
Thank you. So as I said earlier, I mean, I think having a look at the mandate of the committee, seeing what other jurisdictions do broadly in terms of Veterans Affairs, but it would also be timely to have a look at how other jurisdictions are responding to the Seamless Canada initiative. And so I guess in terms of resources, I guess, so I don't know, but can the committee clerk be part of doing some of that research or working with Ledge Library in terms of doing that jurisdictional scan? I don't know if that falls within the purview of the clerk's role, but it would be great to have, you know, if I think of federal parliamentary committees, the clerk would go away and compile some information and bring it into us, and then we would have a chance to review it and have a discussion about it.
Is there any discussion on, any response to MLA Lachance's comments by anybody? Okay. All right, so seeing none, oh, MLA Young?
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking at the same time. No, just that, you know, we have a lot of good topics here. We have a lot of good witnesses here. As the committee only meets, it doesn't make it as frequent as some of the other committees. I'd like to stick to some of the topics and have witnesses, you know, come into the committee.
All right. MLA Jessamine, I'll let you wrap it up.
Yeah, I guess that would be our primary topic objective, and in hearing some of the comments from committee members opposite, I believe there to be an openness to have this discussion, and if not during one of our committee meetings, when should we expect to have that conversation? And I'd like to hear from other committee members about when that day would come. If not, we've elected to take this and, if you want to call it that, sacrifice one of our opportunities to engage witnesses. That's a decision that we're choosing to make, and I believe that it gives us at least one opportunity to have those conversations, to have a preliminary conversation and see where it goes. My question, if not at a regular committee meeting, then do we need an additional committee meeting to have that discussion?
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. So there is a motion for a topic, expanded mandate of the review committee, of the committee review on the floor. So we'll put this, I guess we'll vote. Is there, all those in favor, just signify by saying aye.
Sorry, apologize. I'm sorry. Could I have the question?
The ayes there.
So we'll vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. Motion is defeated. Who would be MLA Ince?
The second item for topic would be the impacts of healthcare crisis at Camp Hill. We'd be looking at witnesses, the Department of Health and Wellness, the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, and Veteran Services and Geriatrics, the director.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried. MLA Jessamine.
And to round out our topics, I'd just like to add, and this is a quote from Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, Hansard, MLA Tom Taggart. I don't believe that I have any business whatsoever in determining which, maybe I'm wet behind the ears, you know what I mean? I'm not sure I have any business deciding what topics either the official opposition or third party bring forward. I may be wrong, but I think that's the decision that those caucuses make. I'm not going to vote on them. I don't plan to. So we're here today. We just watched one topic get voted down by the government party after we just had a pretty, I think, fair conversation about the mandate being expanded to the committee, and that was shut down, contrary to what the honourable member stated previously at this very committee. So, therefore, the Liberal caucus selects for their second topic medical coverage for veterans, and we'd like to see representatives from Blue Cross Atlantic and Veterans Affairs Canada appear before the committee.
Thank you, MLA Jessom. And I would ask that you table the work that we just read. That'd be great. Thank you. So the motion on the table, is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We'll move on to MLA Lachance for the NDP topics.
Great, thank you. I'm just pulling open a copy of the letter that I have. Our first recommended topic is looking at the question of the use and availability of Veterans Affairs long-term care beds in Nova Scotia. A number of our members, and perhaps some of yours, of the other caucuses, have received letters from Legions expressing concern about the long-term care beds that are allocated to veterans being seen as sort of superfluous or available to be filled and being filled. And so there's a concern that the sort of understanding that we have is not being followed. And I can read one of the letters if that's helpful. I'm writing on behalf of all members of the Royal Canadian Legion Psalm Branch 31 to express grave concern for the decision of the Government of Nova Scotia to convert Veterans Affairs designated spaces to help create more bed capacity and support patient flow in the area of long-term care in this province. The Ministry of Seniors and Long-Term Care have informed the Royal Canadian Legion that these Veterans Affairs Canada contracted spaces are considered by the province to be chronically vacant. This statement and intended undertaking leads us to believe that the Government of Nova Scotia is unaware of the long-standing inequity around the limiting criteria of eligibility for Veterans Affairs contract beds in this country. The Royal Canadian Legion has long advocated that eligibility be expanded to allow all Canadian Armed Forces veterans, regardless of when or where they served, access to designated Veterans Affairs Canada contract beds. And yours truly, Richard D. McCarthy. So, and we also received one from another Legion as well, expressing similar concerns. So I think particularly it would be really important for us to have a look at this issue, and also to do it I would encourage it to be done in a timely fashion, because I think this is a real time issue that we're hearing about in our communities.
Thank you, MLA Lachance. And I would ask that you table the email that you sent, either probably forward it to the clerk, and then he can distribute it to the committee from there. Thank you. So the motion on the table is there. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried. And that would fulfill the NDP topics. So that concludes our agenda setting. MLA Jessom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the committee, we have our deck stacked for committee business and witnesses topics for consideration and Q&A. Appreciate the nature of all the topics that we've been fortunate to select and choose. I would like to make a motion in hearing that the government was not prepared to have a conversation about Seamless Canada, or not intended to approve the changes to reflect the mandate of Seamless Canada at this committee, and hearing that they were subsequently not interested in having a discussion about changing the mandate of this committee, improving the mandate of this committee at a regularly scheduled committee meeting, I move that we as a committee have a special meeting to have a conversation about improving the mandate of this Veterans Affairs Committee.
Did you just put a motion forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I didn't hear it as a motion, but if you could please succinctly state your motion so the committee can hear it,
The
that'd be great.
motion, Mr. Chair, thank you, through you, would be to have an additional committee meeting to consider an expanded scope, expanded mandate for the Veterans Affairs Committee to improve the way that we do business here.
Is there any discussion of the motion? MLA Taggart.
I'm curious how it's any different this year than it has been for the last 8, 10, 12 years. How are these committees operating different now than they were before that would cause you to suddenly suggest that they're not operating properly?
So what I'll do, I'll allow MLA Jessamine to respond to that, and then MLA Barkos, you'll have a comment after that.
Thank you. Thank you to the honourable member for that question through the chair. My intent would not be to suggest that, I guess, the active business that has been conducted of this committee during the last several years and perhaps preceding it was done incorrectly or inaccurately. What I'm suggesting, and I frankly did hear supportive comments from members opposite, that there is an opportunity, there should be an opportunity to have that conversation about how we improve business. I mean, whether, like, this committee has always been one that has been very nonpartisan. We've been able to conduct business in such a way that has always been genuine and thoughtful of how we best serve the veterans in our communities. And I think that my comments and mentioning that I have sat on this committee for 9 years, and I'll say it again, I have seen witnesses, and it's important to get updates from witnesses, but we have seen similar witnesses come and go from this committee. Their messages are important, and it's important for new members to be able to ask questions of witnesses that have appeared before the committee previously. What I'm suggesting is that after, I don't know the precise time that this committee was started, but I'm saying I've been on this committee for 9 years, more than 9 years now, and I believe in the interest of making improvements, being progressive, being intentional about modernizing committees and doing our best to serve veterans or people related to military families, that it's fair to ask that question, and it could result in a meaningful change for military families.
Thank you, MLA Jessamine. MLA Barkos?
Thank you, and I think back to when we did our last agenda setting item, and I asked for Seamless Canada to come back to our committee, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle with that, saying, well, we just had him here. And so I think back to that, but it's not that, okay, my feeling sitting here, it's not that we're against it, but I'm wondering if the clerk can do a scan, maybe, and come back to us or come back to committee, sorry, for MLAs, for us MLAs to review before approving the motion. Again, we're not against it. We just want to ensure that the mandate falls within the provincial jurisdiction because, you know, as you know, most of this is federal. So it's kind of just wanting to know, dipping your toes in, if you will. And so if that could be done, that would be great. And then we know what we're working with, right?
Thank you, MLA Barcos. Now, as that was similar to, I think, what MLA Lachance, and I think it's a good reinforcement of that suggestion. I have been just consulting with the clerk that I think that that's the approach that I'm going to suggest, with your permission, that the clerk do a scan of other jurisdictions and look at practices there and other. That was your particular suggestion as well, MLA Lachance and MLA Barcos. Thank you for that. So not to, I know there's a motion on the floor. We'll deal with that, but that is something I was going to direct. MLA Lachance, did you have another comment? No? Okay. MLA Jessom?
Thank you for that, and I believe that that's a reasonable first step. What I would ask in response to that suggestion is, when should the committee anticipate the completion of that jurisdictional scan or review of possible committee mandates? And does it require that we have a special meeting to cover what is discussed, or what the clerk finds? I think that.
Well,
How will the information be disseminated to committee members?
Sure. Well, the only thing I'll say, and am I allowed to speak as the chair? Okay. Yeah.
Sound a lot better than you do.
Is a suggestion that, I mean, I think this could be dealt with in committee business at a meeting, at a future meeting that we would have, and I can consult with the clerk to find out how long a jurisdictional scan and that type of information gathering can take. It's not going to be next week or anything like that, obviously, but I think, personally, I don't think there'd be a need for a special meeting. I think it could be taken care of in committee business and get a little report from our clerk at such time that would be completed and go from there.
We need to remember that the host.
Oh, MLA Barcos, you had a comment?
Well, I just think we need to remember that the host sits on March 21st, which means we might not actually have our next meeting. But I'm sure that gives us all time to ponder what the scan says for the following meeting. Yeah.
MLA Jessom?
I guess the experience in trying to deal with the motion that I put forward at today's committee being consolidated into committee business following the presentation of witnesses made it challenging to deal with that motion. In fact, it took 3 meetings to get that motion across the line, 4 meetings if you count today. And I know that while the intention is there to hear from that, I don't believe that tagging it into the finite time that we have to deal with committee business after a presenter would do justice in having a proper discussion about the expanded scope of this committee.
If at first you don't succeed, try again. MLA Barcos.
And I say this with all due respect. You know, it's kind of ironic that your statement before this was that we get through everything quite easy and we're all very together in this committee and everything is great. And although I do see your frustration on 4 meetings to talk about seamless, it's usually not like that. And you know, you were the one on the committee for 9 years and you actually had stated that this is a pretty harmonious committee. I feel that as long as we keep so our first session, for example, when we come out of the host sitting, if it's not a contentious topic, we should have enough time, and we can always set the amount of, when questions start and end and whatnot. So I do not feel that this should be a special meeting, because I do trust and believe that we can get through it, because the information will be on paper for us about what each province does. And I don't feel that this is as contentious as maybe it's your last statement said, because, and I get your frustration over seamless, but I feel that we can get through this.
So I think we have a fairly good compromise going forward about how we're going to address this topic. We've had a good discussion on it, but I think I will call the vote. And
You think or you will?
I think I will call the vote. We've had a good discussion on this, so we do have a motion we have to tend to on this, and then we have another method of moving forward. So on the motion that's tabled, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Motion is defeated. Okay.
I can make a motion.
You'd like to make a motion? MLA Marcos.
I'd like to. I'd like to make a motion that that the committee do a. Well, I guess I would say the clerk do a scan for MLAs to review. Other provinces and what their mandates are, and if it does or does not fall within our provincial jurisdiction. And I could clean that up if you're looking off to the side.
Okay, so there is another motion on the table. MLA Jessom, comments on that?
I guess I figured that we would have an opportunity to maybe do a little brainstorming session and figure out where people's heads were at and what might be valuable. I would note, and I'm sure committee members recognize, that this is the only Veterans Affairs committee in the nation, and I believe that I think that the information that we seek should reflect our own province and the different arms of our own provincial government that could benefit from our ability to ask some questions related to military families or veterans affairs.
Okay. So we'll address this motion. Is there any other comments? Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Okay, so that concludes. Is there any other business? Okay, so that concludes our meeting for today. Our next meeting will be, our March 21st meeting is canceled, so our next meeting, probably May, will be the impact on military families amidst a cost of living crisis. That'll be our topic, and the pending confirmation of our witnesses, of course, but that will be our next meeting. So other than that, can I have a call to adjourn?
You got it.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.